We were headed to Tortuguero National Park, but the water level was so low the boys had to get out and push. After over a couple of hours we made it. Tortuguero National Park is on the eastern Caribbean coast of Costa Rica. We saw a couple of strawberry poison dart frogs. These are no bigger than a chickpea. And then I saw some howler monkeys. Tortuguero is full of waterways and is called a little mini Amazon. We hired kayaks. And heard howler monkeys from the water. And saw a snake bird.
And look at this jaguar print compared to a dog. We've just been told there's a sloth at number 43. Just up here a bit. We have to go, there's a stick in the ground and a big tree. We have to go round the big tree and look up, and apparently there will be the sloth. Oh, tree 43. So apparently there's a stick in the ground. Maybe he means this. Maybe that's the stick. Walk around the tree. Big tree. This must be the big tree. I think the sloth must be in this tree. No, it's just a matter of finding it. I'm going to try and walk around this side. The guy said just walk around the tree. Look at this. Look at these spines. So this guy back there said there was a sloth in this big tree here, but we can't see it. I did see an eagle earlier. Maybe it's picked it off already. But look at this, look at this. It's the Caribbean Sea.
We never saw the sloth. The beach stretched as far as the eye could see, in both directions. We heard from a guide that just a handful of the jaguars had developed a taste for turtles. Ecotourism in Tortuguero seems very well organised and developed, with lots of tours and activities, and guides, and the wildlife seems well protected.
This morning we got the bus from San Jose to Punta Arenas, and we've just got on a ferry and we're headed to the Nicoya Peninsula.
The Nicoya Peninsula is on the western Pacific coast of Costa Rica, and it's famous as one of only 5 blue zones in the world.
The bus took us from the ferry to the entrance to Kuru National Park, and now we've got a 2-kilometre walk into where the cabins are.
The blue zones are a few places in the world where people live very long and medication-free lives.
We've booked a bioluminescence tour. We're waiting for it to start for a couple of hours this evening. We're being taken out in a boat.
This was the second boat Sean had to help push. tour included snorkeling before it got dark to see the bioluminescence. When we were snorkeling, we were lucky enough to see a couple of turtles swimming below the surface, one of which came up for a breath of air.
This is our cabin we're staying in. With cold water showers. And this is how far we are from the beach. And this is dawn after our first night in Peru.
The beach at Karoo National Park is beautiful and really shallow for swimming, as we hadn't been able to swim on the Caribbean coast due to the current and the crocodiles. There are self-guided trails in the park, and you can see coatis, deer, howler monkeys, white-faced capuchin monkeys, and wild pigs. My first coati. And on the way back to our hut, we saw a troop of white-faced capuchins. Their tails are so thick and strong, it's like another leg. One of them landed on the roof of our hut.
We're looking for scarlet macaws. We've been told that there's nesting season and there's a false nest. And so it's sunset. And I heard them earlier, a pair. We think this is the false nest.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. They also made it very safe. Let's go just waiting.
So we're just waiting now. I saw them fly off that way earlier, about 10 minutes ago. They're probably still out foraging somewhere. Look at this fruit.
I found a soursop fruit. And then a coati went by.
I'm not sure we're going to see them tonight.
Probably not now. Wait, maybe. I imagine that they probably want to be back before it gets dark there.
They might just come back just on the cusp of darkness.
Probably, yeah. Probably.
We decided to call it a night, but heard them on the way back to our hut.
We can hear them now. We just can't see them.
But suddenly they appeared. Scarlet macaws are not just striking to look at, they are very loud and noisy.
Bonding. Okay.
There are several species of macaw, which are the largest parrots, found only in the Americas. They measure 90 centimetres, almost a metre long, and are all endangered. Just as suddenly as they appeared, they flew off. Early the next morning we saw a collection of hermit crabs all having some kind of huddle meeting on the beach. We didn't know if they were trying to swap shells, and maybe we had interrupted them. We heard the macaws again, and then found a second nest on a small island surrounded by a moat of lilies. And this one had a macaw sitting inside. Scarlet macaws are quite harsh with their chicks, and weaker ones don't get fed. There are adoption programs which can rescue the weaker chicks to be hand-reared successfully. All macaws are still endangered species. The next evening we walked back to the macaw nest to try and find them again. A noise like a chainsaw started coming out of the treetops around us, which were cicadas. The barking howlers and cicadas became a bit spooky for me. But we found the macaws at dawn. A third macaw appeared. I think it might have been the mate of the one sitting on eggs in the lily pond nest. Scarlet macaws mate for life. Though endangered, a scarlet macaw's life seems pretty relaxed to me. We then went to the tip of the Nicoya Peninsula, to the Cabo Blanco Reserve. This used to be farmland, but was founded in 1963 as the first area of conservation that was protected in Costa Rica by a Scandinavian couple. It takes 10 years for scrubland to appear, 30 years for secondary forest, and 50 years for mature secondary forest. After a couple of hours' walk, we got to the beach right at the very tip of the Nicoya Peninsula. The Pacific is rough here. You can go in the water, but carefully, because of riptides and there is no lifeguard. It is the home of pelicans.
We arrived in Ostional today, which is one of the largest beaches in the world for turtle nesting.
Ostional is in the Guanacaste province of the Nicoya Peninsula and is the home of Costa Rican cowboys. At the right time of year, the black sand beach can see up to 500,000 olive ridley turtles come ashore in one night to nest. We had got there at a different time of year, but even in the rest of the year, at the right time of the lunar cycle, some turtles can still come ashore. It is the only beach in the world where turtle eggs can still be legally harvested by the locals in the first 36 hours of a mass nesting event. This is thought to help encourage the locals to protect the turtles as an income stream, and is justified as they say lots of the initial eggs in a mass nesting event are doomed not to hatch. But despite these mass nesting events, olive ridley turtles are still endangered. There were also signs saying no dogs were allowed on the beach, but despite this, I counted 10 dogs digging up lots of eggs. There were also hundreds of vultures to finish off after the dogs had done the digging, though they at least seem part of the natural ecosystem. It was unclear what proportion of the dogs were feral, stray dogs, though I did see dogs with their owners on the beach as well. Guanacaste is a poor province, though the contrast for me with Tortuguero on the Caribbean eastern coast of Costa Rica was striking. In Tortuguero, business was thriving for the local people, with cafes and restaurants and shops. And interestingly there, the wildlife had seemed properly protected. We weren't there during a huge turtle mass nesting season, but conservation to me at this beach of mesmerising sunsets seemed neglected. No local guides seemed available, and I had given up hope of seeing a turtle. But on our last night, which was just immediately of the new moon, our guest house owner said we should get up early. So we got to the beach at dawn at 5 a.m. and unbelievably there was one olive ridley turtle on the beach. She was the only one left, though a few other turtles must have been there as their tracks were visible down to the water. We stayed behind her, as you are not supposed to be between a turtle and the sea. She was still digging her nest. It took her an hour, and every few minutes she had to stop, exhausted. A vulture appeared. I wasn't sure whether to interfere, but after what I had seen, I shooed it away. While we were watching her, 2 dogs also came up and started sniffing in her face, so I shooed them away too. Then, surrounded by flies and broken eggshells, she laid her eggs. Turtles do not like white light. They like to come up at night and prefer infrared light. And you're not supposed to use white lights near them. One good thing about the beach at Ostionol was that all the street lights in the village were red, not white. She seemed to start covering the eggs, and she made an excellent job of this. Although she surely must have been conscious she was late up the beach and running out of time. Turtles are born on land, but only the females return to nest and spend the rest of their lives underwater. They breathe air though, and have to come up every 20 to 40 minutes when they're foraging, but bizarrely can hold one breath for hours when asleep or less active. The lifespan of an olive ridley turtle is not much less than a human at 50 to 60 years. But fewer than 1 in 1,000 hatchlings make it to adulthood. And I don't know how many eggs get to even hatch from each nest here. I couldn't help thinking that the dogs would just sniff out her eggs and dig them up later that day. After all her effort. Finally, it was time to go back to the sea. Though she still had to keep resting every few minutes. The effort of nesting for a turtle has been compared to a human doing a marathon. And the vulnerability that a female turtle has to go through while nesting has been compared to human childbirth. I was conscious of watching a prehistoric spectacle, and that this turtle had made it against all the odds to hatch, reach adulthood, mysteriously navigate her way through the murky ocean, and then return to the exact beach of her birth to lay her own eggs. I tried to imagine her relief when the waves washed around her. She took a couple of last breaths and then disappeared.